Fast and frantic action, a dazzling display of thousands of bullets in a multitude of shapes and sizes, and glorious, glorious particle effects. These hallmarks are what Housemarque games are all about, and Returnal certainly checks all of those boxes, but it's also its most ambitious effort yet. A PS5 exclusive third-person shooter with an incredible sense of exploration and discovery, rich atmosphere, and shootouts that remain fresh and rewarding throughout the multiple playthroughs needed to beat its roguelike campaign and unlock the secrets that remain beyond its credits. A good run takes a bit too long for something you have to complete in one sitting, but the reward for making that commitment is more than worthwhile. Returnal tells the story of Celine Vassos after she crash lands on an alien planet called Atropos. As she emerges from her ship and tries to locate the origin of a mysterious signal, things start to get very weird and time loopy very quickly. Of course, this all serves to contextualize the fact that this is a roguelike, and built on the idea of repeated runs through the same environments, but it's also a clever storytelling device. Celine is able to find logs left by her former selves, which slowly starts to peel back the layers of Returnal's central questions. It's a surprisingly deep story, one that even mixes things up with some creepy first-person PT-esque house explorations that dive into the psyche of Celine. It's not quite as elegant of a solution to roguelike storytelling as what Hades did, but it's an admirable effort nonetheless. While the story focus may be a surprise given Housemarque's previous games, the tight and responsive gunplay is right on brand. The dash, the barrage of bullets, the growing circles of death, and the mega asshole enemies that seem to be able to do a little bit of everything. There's an excellent variety of enemies in Returnal, and even when it resorts to using the same character model in a different environment, there's always something different in their behavior that makes them a completely new challenge. Learning those behaviors is important because Returnal really encourages you to not get hit. There's an adrenaline meter that builds up as you score kills and grants up to 5 stacking buffs, but they disappear when you take a single hit. Also, if you pick up health items while you're at max life, it actually adds to your total health capacity. Returnal is a hard game, but it rewards you handsomely for playing well and for making smart choices, which is always a great feeling. And those major risk-reward choices often aren't so easy either. Risk versus reward is paramount to Returnal, with chests and health pickups that have a chance to sally you with a hard-to-get-rid-of suit malfunction, and equally hard to remove parasites that grant both a buff and a debuff, typically not of equal value. You just have to make the best of a bad situation, which is one of the key aspects of the roguelike genre that Returnal absolutely nails. This improvisational style of combat that has you constantly changing up your weapons, altering your strategy on the fly based on the types of upgrades that you come across, and deciding whether to buy or save your currency is crucial to making every run feel like a new and fresh experience. What furthers that feeling of freshness is the weapon variety and the weapon trait system. Each of the 10 weapons in Returnal may spawn with a number of gun-specific traits that dramatically affect how that weapon is used. There are just so many possibilities for each weapon, which has given each of my playthroughs thus far a distinct flavor. The risk-reward concept finds its way here as well, since traits are locked at the start and must be unlocked through scoring enough kills with that weapon. So you might have a good weapon, come across another one that's maybe slightly worse, but it has a locked trait, and then decide to risk throwing away that weapon that you currently are doing well with in favor of the potential of unlocking a new powerful trait that will aid you in subsequent runs. It's just really smart stuff. However, one of the key aspects of the roguelike genre that Returnal does not nail is the nagging feeling of just one more run. That's because a run-through of Returnal just lasts way too long. Plain and simple. To paint a picture, at the time of this writing, I've put 42 hours into Returnal so far, and in those 42 hours, I've only died 25 times. And that's not a weird flex or me saying that this game is easy, because again, it's absolutely not. Just to illustrate that, again, these individual runs are really long. And it's made worse because of the fact that you can't save. So you can't do anything else with the PS5 while you're playing. You can't play a new game, you can't turn off your PS5, and while you can put it into rest mode, you'd better hope that nothing happens that unexpectedly restarts your system, like a firmware update. It's a lot to risk. Runs last so long because of the fact that if you want to give yourself the best chance of survival, you have to grind each level before you move on. Weapons don't drop according to how deep you are in the run, they drop based on your weapon proficiency level, which increases by defeating enemies and collecting certain pickups. Attempting a later stage when your weapon proficiency level is too low takes an already hard game and makes it absolutely ridiculously difficult. And that really slowed my momentum. Unlike other roguelikes such as the Splunky games, Dead Cells, or more recently, Curse of the Dead Gods, I was never eager to jump back into another game after a death. I kinda just needed a break. The good news, at least, is that the actual act of exploration in Returnal is done extraordinarily well. Every level is a sight to behold, and it helps that there's a great variety in the challenges of the many rooms. Despite the procedural generation that keeps Returnal from becoming too predictable, enemies and environmental elements always feel deliberately placed. Also, can we just take a second to appreciate the fact that while this may not be a PS5 graphical showcase on the same level of, say, Demon's Souls, Returnal looks really good and runs at a nearly flawless 60 FPS. Where it really does show its new-gen chops is in the ways it uses the DualSense controller. Barring Astro's Playroom, this is the best usage of haptic feedback and adaptive triggers so far on the platform because it actually makes a difference in how you play. Sure, it's cool to feel the raindrops on the controller, but what's even cooler is having that added element of sensory feedback to let you know when your alt-fire is off cooldown in the form of a very specific feeling rumble in your controller. As I mentioned earlier, I've played Returnal for about 42 hours, but I actually rolled credits at around hour 18. Everything since then has been working towards uncovering a secret ending, finding all of the 80 xenociphers hidden throughout the 6 levels, trying to find as many lore-dropping audio logs as I can, and running daily challenges. Needless to say, there's a lot of meat on this bone, and completionists will find plenty to keep them busy for quite a while. The moment-to-moment gameplay of Returnal is sublime, with a great selection of weapons that each have a wide variety of interesting possible traits, meaningful strategic decisions that can either keep a run afloat or doom it to sink, and punishingly challenging yet rewarding gunplay that is consistently exhilarating. And even with all the focus on the action, it never drops the ball in the story either. Its big issue is that runs last way too long, and there's no way to save progress outside of putting the PS5 in rest mode. That saps the desire to immediately return and try again after a failure, though not enough to grind it to a halt. Even so, Returnal is an incredible roguelike and one of Housemarque's best games to date. For more Returnal, check out the first minutes of the game. And for everything else, keep it here on IGN.